Yeah. Forged in the fire, shaped by the struggle. Every trial, every tear made the steel in our muscle. Tempered by mercy, held tight by your hand. Make us leaders who can carry what you've placed in this land. Make us brothers who sharpen, not shatter. Men who restore, not scatter. Men who can take correction and give it with love.
This is episode 5. So welcome back to the Men of Valor, Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. So today we're going to talk about something that's real to a lot of us, if not all of us. Just dealing with the not always knowing how to put things into words, and because of frustration. It's not just the kind that comes and goes, from day to day, from little incidental things, but the kind that builds up when we feel like we keep running to the same old obstacles that keep us from moving forward to resolve the issue and or grow. So in this episode, we are going to have a real and grounded conversation for men about frustration, old habits, and the weight of past experiences. This discussion is shaped by the Men of Valor, focused on biblical manhood, spiritual responsibility, honest self-examination, and the kind of growth that happens when men stop making excuses, start walking in truth, accountability, and purpose. And when I say this, I'm talking to myself too, because believe it or not, this is helping me walk in the purpose that God has called me to do. And when I say called me to do, I mean walk in his purpose, seeking him, reading his word, and just continuously trying to grow day by day. So with that being said, let's get into it. So, frustrations, that's one of the biggest things that a lot of us as men, it's not culture specific, although culture can determine the types of frustrations that we deal with as men. But as men, there are some things that are universal. So frustration is more than just a passing emotion, because frustration does stir up a lot of emotion. Everything from sadness, anger, anxiety, just being anxious, it can just, or a combination of everything. So, and it also just reveals a deeper struggle, repeated patterns, and areas where we just feel stuck. All right, so I'm going to read some scripture. The first one is James 1:19 through 20. All right, so I'm gonna get to it myself because I've been reading a little bit, so I'm not exactly where I wanted to be. All right, and James 1 through 19. No, I'm sorry, James 1:19 through 20. All right. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce righteousness of God. Now, as I was reading and studying this, trying to fully understand what this means and what I got from this, and what it seems to be telling us, is we have to be able to listen to the whole story, observe the whole situation. Don't be so quick to add our 2 cents without knowing the whole story. And after we've heard or observed what we needed to, don't be so quick to react and automatically jump to retaliation, punishment, or get back. Exacting our own form of justice does not produce righteousness. All right. So that's something that I know a lot of us as men, because we don't practice owning our emotions. And what I mean by that, I can't remember which one of you fellas mentioned it, either John or Kerr. I think both of you might have mentioned it, but how as men we grow up to learn, and we're told to suck it up, stop crying, don't be emotional, don't do this, don't do that. So we never learn to properly handle our emotions. We're taught to bottle up those emotions. And when those emotions get so bottled up, it's like a shaking a cork bottle with soda water or soda in it, and the cork just pops off.
Mm.
And just like soda, those emotions go everywhere, and it makes quite a mess.
Mm.
So we have to learn to handle our emotions. Emotions are okay. It's nothing wrong with showing our emotions. It's just we cannot be led by our emotions. And because we don't learn how to, at an early age, to learn to do this, um, when we do get into emotional situations, we tend to overreact. And sometimes this can result in making hasty decisions. It can be reacting physically to something or someone, because we don't know how to handle those emotions.
Mm.
So
Mm.
what are your thoughts on this, Curry? I know John has some technical issues, so.
Yeah, no, I am going to definitely jump in. That, and yeah, I remember this conversation from a few weeks ago with men when we're growing up. Be a man, suck it up, or whatever, or you would get punched in your chest if you cry, or you're gonna get, or if you come running home crying because the bully beat you up, then I'm gonna beat you when you get home for not beating up the bully that want to beat you up. So it places us in this mindset from an early age of like, dang, we do, dang if we don't. And sadly, now in our today time, it has resulted in it has resulted in either overflowing jail cells or overflowing graveyards.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately.
Just for the base of not being able to control our emotions, and then it's done in the name of now it's done in the name of they disrespected me because your whole childhood growing up it's about be a man, they got to respect you, and so you bottling up all the stuff on the inside of you because we in our mind we have the psychology now thinking because I held all this in from age 8 or 7 when it started, or age 6 getting beat up by older brothers or uncles or whoever. Now
Mhm.
here, I'm in my, later on in life, and I'm thinking this is my idea of respect. So if you say something, I pop off because you disrespected me and all this right here. Like you said, nothing more than a soda bottle weight that's been shaken up, waiting to open up, or a volcano waiting to explode. And so now we have to like rewire a whole generation of psychological thinking. Yes, in today's time, you have like now, like I said before, there's more, it's like, more in the black community, and even more so, thank God, amongst black men, words like therapy and counselor and all this is finally coming up, and it not being court ordered. Is being more decision led versus being court ordered. Because at one point, black folks ain't going to no therapy unless the judge says so to get your kids back, or something like that. But now we're able to like it's a conversation that we're open to finally start having. Podcasts such as this right here is finally starting to begin, so these conversations that can finally be had to rewire a generational thinking to now, so when our kids come up, what we now had to like trailblaze through can be normal for them now. It's
True, true. And as you were talking, it just also made me think about something. Why having both the father and mom in the household is so important.
mm,
Because children need to learn the dynamic on both sides.
mm,
Because I I was I think I was talking to John, or I was talking to my wife. I can't remember. I was having a conversation with someone.
mm,
I think it was my wife. And I was having a conversation with her, and I was telling her there was this video that I watched. It was a young lady talking, and she was just making it known that she can't get on board with hating men.
Mm.
And the reason she said she could not get on board with hating men is because she had a great father. Her father, was always there for her. She was like, he was just a great dad. And she was like, so I can't say that all men are bad because I refuse to believe that the good Lord only created one good man.
Mm.
So with that being said, and the point of that is because he was in her life, because they had this bond where she learned from him, whether passively learning or direct learning. She learned to think with reason and not just emotion. She didn't respond emotionally. She responded with facts and logic, as
Mm.
opposed to just going, all men are this and that and that and that and this.
Right.
Or, so she, there's a balance. And likewise with us as men, when we have a mom in the household,
Yeah.
and a man and a father in the household.
Mm-hmm.
With the mom, we learn to to understand our feelings because women are just naturally more in tune to their emotions. Whereas we, and I'm going to say it's more so culture because it's
Yeah.
so ingrained in our culture that it seems like that's just a natural way of us being, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. And because God created us to be relational, how can we be relational if we don't have feelings, if we don't, if we're always suppressing everything?
Good. That's so
um,
true.
so it's just important to have that dynamic. um, and it was just something I thought about. It wasn't really the main one part of the talking point,
Oh,
but
okay, listen, I was about to read something. I saw this now as you were talking, before we change subject, because this is a pretty good subject matter right here. Well, I'm gonna do really two things, really, I guess I'll address to it. One, I just kind of Googled some information. And so, of course, with Google, you still kind of take it with a grain of salt, but, I do put this in the ballpark of pretty much interesting information. So it says here, this is some reports as of 2025. I just Google statistics of, I'm going to specifically talk about the brothers. I'm not excluding our Caucasians or Asians or whomever other races, just for a moment, just for the African American community of men. It says here, the information I'm going to read is based on 2025.
mhm,
Black men experiencing emotion dysregulation, anger, or aggression are up to 3 times more likely to be arrested than white men displaying the same level of symptom severity.
hmm,
And that report comes from the Mad in America website. Another one says here that experiencing higher rates. I was trying to find, I just had it a second ago. Yes, one here. So another one says here that among among recently incarcerated individuals, this is from 2024 to 2025, 57% reported experiencing mild to severe psychological distress. Um, and that's coming from the National Institute of Health.gov website.
hmm,
And then another one here is Um, the same study showed that a 1 unit increase in self-reported aggression resulted in 2.54 increase in arrest rates for Black men compared to a 0.54 times increase for white men. And so, and again, this is from the Mad in America website. And
okay,
so it's showing here that, those quick outbursts, it's like we want to, a lot of times we have these talks and these conversations, or when I have like the conferences and the gatherings to talk to avoid getting to these levels,
mhm,
far as outbursts and all this kind of stuff. But it's showing here that there is a deep rooted psychology after the outburst or the thing that happened that led someone to do an act or whatever, that now we realize, it's stuff. You can track all this anger, you can track all this fury, you can track all this rage back to, it goes levels deep down to childhood.
Yeah.
And so now the question is, does that make it an excuse for today for the act being done? And you could debate that all day long, but the courts are just going to see the act that was done versus the psychology that got you to the act being done. So it was like we now have to put parameters, put barriers, put boundaries in place, put accountabilities in place
Hmm.
to avoid, like whenever a road, like a highway or something is being constructed, like you got two lanes. How do we know it's a two lane? Because that paint in the middle of the road says it's two lanes. Or
Right.
if it's three lanes, how do we know it's three lanes? Because the paint in the road says it's three lanes. It wasn't for the paint being there, it's chaos. So the boundaries, the things in place is not to stifle you, it's to keep you safe
Hmm.
from the accident happening, because now the insurance company ain't going to ask about what was the white line in the road. They want to know whose fault is it, who paying for the damages.
Right.
On the side of the road, you got the barriers, the little so you won't, like, God forbid, flip off the road and flip over the interstate or the highway. So they got the little the things on the side to block it, or before you hit the barriers, it has like the chopped up on the road, like a sound, but
Yeah.
if you fall asleep, to wake you back up. And
Right.
so if our roadways have the wisdom to say, let's put these barriers in place to keep folks awake on the road if they fall asleep, or to keep from a crash happening, putting lines in the road, these barriers in place to prevent the act of the accident, to prevent the act of the crash, to prevent the act of, of God forbid someone dying on the road. So things like accountability, things like calling a brother up, things like these kinds of podcasts, these
Hmm.
kinds of conversations, these are the barriers in place with the prayer that it would avoid the act from happening, because now they're gonna look at all this. They're looking at the act.
Right. Right. That's good. That's real good. Because there are a lot of things in place to help keep us safe,
Mhm.
mitigate the damages or effects of our actions,
Mhm.
or inaction, for that matter. Um, so it is crucial that we are staying as focused as we can while acknowledging the emotions that we have, which also takes me into Proverbs. So in Proverbs 10:19,
Yeah.
it says, "In the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise."
Read that again. Where did even go to? Oh, read that one again.
Yeah, so the multitude of words in words, sin is not lacking, but
Mm.
he restrains his lips is wise. And I'm going to go ahead and read the next couple of verses. "The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the
Mm.
righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of wisdom."
Mm.
I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, when we do not, and I've been guilty of it,
Hmm.
when we do not keep our emotions in check, we can say some harsh, wicked things to people, even the ones we say we love.
Mm.
Because the more we speak out of anger, we are likely to say something that does not glorify God,
Yeah.
and the words that we say can cut deep, and is often without consideration of the effect that it will have on the other person we're saying it to. And even when, in those times, sometimes we may consider that it may hurt, but then in those moments, because we are being emotional, we
Mm.
don't care, because we feel how we feel and we don't care how you're feeling in the moment.
Hmm.
Wow.
So that is something that we have to as men of God, as men seeking God, we have to be really mindful of the things that we say to people, and especially the ones that we say that we love.
Yeah.
And being and restraining our, our words. Who, John, is that you with the music in the background?
I guess it is. Sorry. How about now?
All right, you good.
Sorry.
All right. No problem. All right. So restraint doesn't necessarily mean we don't say anything,
Mm-hmm.
but it's how we say it.
Yes, sir.
It's how we say it. You know, and it doesn't mean that we can't show anger. We can show anger, but we don't let that anger control the things that we say or do when we're angry, because we can be. God doesn't say we can't be angry. He doesn't say we can't be sad. We can't be happy. You know, in fact, it's quite the opposite. He tells us to rejoice. He tells us to cry when our neighbor cries. You know, be angry but sin not. So have feelings, we can express them, but it's how we express them that we have to be mindful of.
And that's powerful right there, because that fact that leads right into the book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 1, which says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And so that goes right along with what you read in Proverbs chapter 10 just a moment ago. That, you know, so grievous words has the capacity to stir up anger, or harsh words. And so it's like, now, if you're coming at me in a certain tone, in a certain manner, I now have to exercise more boundaries to keep me from snapping back off on you, which in a sense is not fair to me because you're coming at the tone. But if it was a soft beginning, it could be, and everyone can hear each other clearly. And like you said, even if someone gets angry, okay, I'm not using my words to intentionally anger you, but okay, we're in a controlled environment. So, okay, what you said is frustrating, but this is my take on how we can kind of handle or solve this
Right.
particular discussion or disagreement. And so the word, and I mean, and this kind of conversation here, it can go in so many directions, whether it's work, marriage, co-workers, someone on the driving on the road, speaking about being on the road, flicking you off. You know, it can go so many directions that the words out of our mouth, like the Lord Jesus said it best, is not what goes into your mouth that defiles you, it what comes up out of you. And so in so many ways, you know, like, what are we about to get ready to let come up out of us?
Right.
And, you know, then we have to think about David, when David said, you know, let the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth. And so, yes, it's good that, oh, the Lord know my heart. Okay, that's good, but let the message of my heart and the words of my mouth. So the Lord knows your heart, and He also knows your tongue. And
Yeah.
sometimes, if you don't know what to be let on your mouth, you just said it best. Restraint. 2026 version. Shut up sometimes. Because that is the moment. Because that one moment of snapping, that one moment, you know, even if God forbid it doesn't cost you to go in front of a judge, it can cost you so much. It can cost so many opportunities from that one. All you had to do was just hold it together at that one moment, and who knows what that could have saved, what could have been spared. That could have a whole can of worms that could have burst from that 1 second. And that's why in the book of Luke, the Lord says it like this: "And your patience possess your soul." You got to possess your soul. So in the moment where you want to act out, that's when you got to grab a hold of your soul, because from your soul, that's what's going to hit your tongue, and what's on your tongue going to come into the atmosphere. So in my patience, so in the moment I want to go, you know, like, because let's face some facts. Now, y'all some military men, and no one can come up with the tongue with the words passing to some guys in the military. And so it's like, in that moment, I gotta have the patience in that moment to grab it and possess your soul, because you don't possess your soul, some word's gonna possess your tongue. And no matter what about to fly out and what happens next happens next. So like, it's so crazy how, like, in the instant of a second, so many thoughts can hit to say, okay, I know this is a moment where you want to act out, but okay, that 10 scriptures hit, or what's something you could think in that moment that would keep yourself together, because you don't know how this moment can cost you or reward you. and all from
Exactly.
this instant. So again, so then these are really things to think about. You know, like a soft answer that can turn away a whole wrath, and like how you just read through our Proverbs chapter 10. Just having wise words that come up out of our mouth, and they're just those moments right there. There's another scripture in Proverbs that even says that even a fool is kind of as wise when he just keep his mouth closed.
Yeah.
So sometimes you know what to say,
And know when to
and
shut up.
listen, and brothers, I'm telling you, even that even come down sometimes. It got to come down to the spouses too, because the spouse also you ain't got nothing to say. Because sometimes, because sometimes even a fool is kind of as wise. Because right now I got some foolish thoughts in my head, so even I'd rather say not at the moment. So calm it on down. Let's revisit this later, because again, anything in the moment can happen, but this is the moment I gotta possess my soul and let patience win. So that way, after this moment is passed, it won't result in more pain and destruction than what it could have. It just sometimes if you don't know what to say, just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because it's not just words, it's action too. Because those foolish thoughts
Mm-hmm.
can cause you to make some foolish
What?
action.
Oh,
You know,
mute your phone, John. Well,
it can
that's one of
cause
my babies.
it can cause you to follow through with some foolish actions. Because I can't tell you
Mm-hmm.
how many times I didn't had some foolish thoughts. And
Sir.
a couple of times, well, actually a couple of times, a few times in my life, I didn't follow through with them, and then I'm like, why did I do that? So and it's funny because I can think back on it, and I can thank God that the repercussions behind those actions um, did not surface. I'll put it that way, because it could have been bad.
Yeah.
But that just goes into, because you're saying something earlier, and I thought about, and I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was something I saw on YouTube, was listening to or read, but it was a guy who was talking to someone who just got in jail, and he was saying, he was talking to the guy. He was just like, "So you doing a lifetime for 10 minutes?"
Oh
He was
my God.
he was
Oh,
like, "Man," he was like, "That's a long time." He was like, "Because I'm doing lifetime for 5 minutes." Because they were reacting on what they were feeling in that moment, and it cost them their life in imprisonment. So spiritually speaking, we have to think about the things that we do, because it can cause our salvation. So we really have to be mindful. I mean, I can tell some stories, about things that could have gone wrong.
Yeah.
so many times. But I maybe I'll talk about it another time, not now. But yeah, it's some being mindful of those foolish thoughts, which goes into, and this, we're gonna stay in Proverbs just for a second, because there's in Proverbs 14, 7 and 8. So go from the presence of a foolish man when you do not perceive in him the lips of knowledge. The wisdom of the prudent is to understand his way, but the folly of fools is deceit. Now, this is what I got from it. If you read the scripture, and those of you who are watching and listening, read these scriptures for yourself, so you can understand God's word for yourself. Don't take our word on anything. This is just what I got from it. But in Proverbs 14 through 17, basically what I got from is saying, don't waste your time arguing, debating with someone that is foolish. And they lack in wisdom. Everything that they're saying has no bearing on anything. They're just looking for a reason to argue.
Looking for a reason.
Looking for a reason. So a wise man will always seek to understand his way, meaning a wise person will try to understand why they believe in or have an opinion about something based on credible, factual, or best information available at the time. Whereas a foolish person will only listen to what moves them emotionally or bits of
Mhm.
factual information and will formulate an emotional opinion without evaluating the entirety of the information available to them,
Mm.
even if everything they believe is not based on facts or reasonable understanding. Just don't waste your time having fruitless conversations or arguments with these individuals. Certainly don't argue.
You
Just
know, what's so funny about that? Earlier, it was so funny because earlier today, I'm in I'm in the car, and I was talking with the wife, and somehow it's funny having this conversation because I said, you know what, we're in a day right now. I'm going to agree with everybody on everything at this point. You know what? If you say Frost can sing, you're exactly right, and they sing in good harmony too. It's because it just comes to that point where like just trying to get someone that don't want to understand simple logic to understand you, and if it's just not going to work, you know what? I'm gonna be just as much as a fool as I'm trying to help the fools that don't want to be helped in this foolishness and making me a fool like you. So you know what? You're exactly right. Child, that grass is purple. I see
yeah.
it.
So John, I know you had some technical issues, but I know you've been listening a little bit. Hey, jump in, give some feedback on what you heard. What is your
Mhm.
what are some things you have to
It,
say?
it's I was trying to give a little feedback, but I have a little extra guest, and
We saw.
Yeah, we
The
see how
world.
you.
she's watching her show, so I'm trying to keep, because you guys are talking some good stuff, and it's really good information. And like the conversation I had with you a couple of weeks ago, I learned how to I don't have to respond. It's a simple thing of, hey, I appreciate you taking my phone call. This conversation is going nowhere, so let's just leave it alone, and hung up.
Right.
There's
You
got to
know,
be
but
that,
yeah,
man.
I agree with you guys wholeheartedly. You gave some really good information. Uh, this is a couple of years ago. I put out some stuff called Men of Valor, a conference that we had called the Elephant in the Room, and you were giving out some statistics that were just upfront and honest. And I think sometimes we don't realize the type of impact that we put on our kids, we put on our spouses, we put on ourselves. Let's be real.
Mm.
And if you don't have the information, you don't understand, and you don't get it, we have a tendency to just kind of do stuff. I had to tell my oldest daughter today, like, hey, stop put stop putting so much pressure on yourself. You're doing a great job. You're going through college. You're doing a wonderful job. um I get it that you want to do this and this, but I had to tell her that. She was like, well, my advisor said this and this, and I said, I get that, but that's an advisor. They're going to advise you. You
Mm.
take it or don't take it.
Right.
you know
You know what? That's so true. It's just an
it is.
advisor. Mm.
Well, if you think about it, people tell you what they are. When you go to a job interview, you know your supervisors, you know your advisors, you know your HR people, you know what their job is. So you shouldn't be shocked if they're doing their job, so to speak.
Right.
Right.
What's that saying? If someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe
Believe
them.
him.
I agree with you 100%. I agree. This is a great topic of conversation. I think this is a good this is an eye opener. I would almost venture to say this might be something we might want to look at again, um, because
Well,
it's you can kind of expand, like you and overseer, you and Carrie said, this can go in so many different directions. It's not even funny.
yeah, it can, and there is a lot to unpack. You know, this in itself, I mean, honestly, it could probably be like a whole class.
Oh, real
Could
talk.
be.
What is it? What do they call it? The help me out when people go and speak in front of people. seminar. It can be a whole
Yeah. Listen, because as you're talking right now, like I'm finding so much like this whole thing about emotions, reacting, the words of our mouths, and all that. Like I'm finding more scripture throughout Proverbs, like till it's ridiculous. Like from Proverbs 12, Proverbs 13, I'm like, man, it's like when you read it, you see it, and now you're in this kind of conversation and you're reading it, and it's like, whoa, it jumps out even more because we're in that vein of conversation. I'm like seeing so much even more scriptures on this whole thing, like
yeah.
our reaction, our mouths, man. It's great. If I was to read this one verse, Proverbs 13, just verse 2 and 3. It says, "A man shall eat good by the fruit of his mouth." A
Mm-hmm.
man shall eat good, and that's not just quote unquote, as you want to say, spiritually speaking, but no, like what things have we said out of our mouths that got us literally to where we are today? Like the words of our mouth drove some of our decisions or our attitudes or our actions or just whatever that could be. And then like verse 3 says, he that keeps his mouth keep his life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, this thing can really this right here, you definitely opened up a can with this one, Vince, because it's like this is such a conversation that's needed, and I would like, yeah, let's keep this one here going for a moment because seriously, we're in the place now, like how much of us got to where we are in our lives. And again, doesn't have to be a bad or a negative place. Is literally what words of our mouths really got us here. When you got on your one knee to ask your wife, ask your girlfriend in marriage, the words of your mouth got you a wife. when
Yeah.
you when you said I would go into the military, the words of your mouth, of course, signing the paperwork, but the words of your mouth, walking into the recruiting office, or just whatever direction we can really take that in, the words of your mouth. Granted, yes, some things on what happen to us, and we understand those things, but like just in the general discourse of life. I preached this before, and I think Minister Grady actually called it out one time that your destiny is searched, but your decisions can be traced. And if you really sit back and trace back your words, you can really see how you got to where you are from the things you said that even started 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. True. Very true. It's funny, because even on the job that I'm with now,
Mm-hmm.
it started out as a temporary position, and it is not that I didn't know how to do my job. I was learning and growing, much like we're doing now, learning and growing.
Mm-hmm.
And but in the process, I never disrespected anyone. I was always cordial and with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, my two original supervisors, um, both of them who happened to be husband and wife, but I had them at different times, point in time
Mm-hmm.
in my career as a supervisor. And to this day, first and foremost, I believe God put me there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But if it were not for them and whomever else that may have, maybe encouraged, but you know, they lobbied for me. It wasn't anything that I did, because I honestly think if they hadn't lobbied for me, I wouldn't even be there today.
Wow.
So yeah, the how we react,
Mm-hmm.
even though at the time, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, what am I supposed to do with this little bit of money?
Mm-hmm.
How am I supposed to make ends meet, kind of thing? I mean, I wasn't stressing, but things like that do go through your mind, but I wasn't letting these things show and affect how
Right.
I. And let me just go into, I don't want to talk too much about that, but it's just an example of being mindful of the things that you say. Don't let everything that you're thinking come out of your mouth.
Mm.
But I also do want to go into, and this is going back on the anger thing, but Proverbs 32, 16:32. It says, he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city.
Mm.
The cost of cast into the lap, but it is every decision is from the Lord. Now, what I got from this, because I had to sit and think about it, I had to read that a few times. And honestly, I still don't know if I got the full understanding because of how it was worded, but this is what I got from it. So, in being able to restrain ourselves is better than an individual who cannot or refuses to restrain themselves.
Mm.
So they would rather react to how they're feeling. A person that reacts with little to no thought will almost always end up with consequences they never intended to have. And I'm gonna pause right there. When we think about situations, even within our communities,
Right.
John, we both worked for housing. We saw how people would react. Um, and get into trouble because they were in their feelings. Um, Girlfriends kicking their boyfriends out, guys upset because somebody said something to disrespect them. I mean, it's just a number of things. And just like I talked about that video or article that I read with the veteran inmate was talking to a new inmate. It was like,
Mm.
dang, you doing lifetime for 5 minutes? I mean, for 10 minutes?
Mm.
So these are things that we don't always think about when we're reacting emotionally and not taking the time to reflect on what it is that's being said or done so that we can determine the best course of actions on how to react to that situation. Even when you think about self-defense, let's say you're armed, you have, your license to carry, but it doesn't give
Mm.
you the license to just shoot someone. There are certain circumstances that have to be followed. You still have to follow the law.
Yes.
And if you allow yourself to be emotional, or let me phrase that, because you're going to be emotional in a situation where you feel like you need to protect yourself or those you love or someone else, you're going to be emotional. But when you allow those emotions to override your thoughts, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make poor decisions. And those poor decisions, those mistakes are going to cost you. And
Mm.
cost you your life or someone else's life, not necessarily literally, but just the negative outcome.
Right. Yeah.
You can lose your job. You likely will lose your job, but but my point is there's outside, I mean, the ultimate loss would be the actual loss of life, but you can lose so much here on this earth for poor choices that you make based on your emotions.
Mm. That's powerful. So I guess my question would be, what would so in that heat of the moment, we all I'm actually reading right now, so we all know about the fight or flight. I guess it's called the acute stress response. I guess fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so, and then when the moment comes up, what would be some fight or flights for an individual in that moment where, okay, this moment is here where my next reaction, my next action, the next words of my mouth, the next whatever is going to could change the course of in everything. What are some things can we do? Can a guy do, a lady do in that moment when it happens? Like what is that for us? What is a few things you would do in that moment? What's some of the, I guess, what some of the actionable steps in this moment when that moment of boom occurs and hit?
Well, for
To
me, and I'll let you speak, John. I apologize.
no, you
Um,
good.
but for me and John, it probably say something very similar because we have a very similar background. We were both in law enforcement. We both have military background, so we have the benefit of learning that, especially in law enforcement, you don't have the luxury of simply reacting on your emotions. In fact, there are a lot of situations that are going to come up where you only have a split second to think. So for me, I was always thinking about certain situations and how I will respond. because so it's always in the back of my mind, and you can't train for life per se, because there's just certain things that comes up. But what we can do is in every situation, in practical terms, we can practice with our loved ones, with our family, our co-members, co-workers, whoever. We can practice restraining our words. We don't have to be so quick to react because we're angry or frustrated. You can take a breath, because a lot of times people will say something and I may not respond right away. I might take a few seconds or a couple of minutes before I respond. And they be like, "Did you hear me?" "Yeah, I heard you. I need a moment to think." So sometimes taking that moment, and maybe I need to work on that too, is just acknowledging, give me a moment to think, because I'm processing all of this. But that's not the first thing that comes out of my mouth. I'll just pause and think about what's going on if it's a situation where I have that opportunity. But I think in those moments where we can afford to think through our actions and the words that we're saying, this gives us practice in those moments where split second situations occur that cause us to height our emotions to go from 0 to 60 in a split second. And we only have a moment to react, and we have to decide whether we want to act emotionally or if we're going to react rationally. And by rational meaning making the best decision in that moment.
What's so crazy? Something at the moment I asked that question, something happened in that immediate moment. Like my wife had called and she said, "You got to come outside. I think this person followed me to the house and they're in front of the house." And that happened immediately when I asked you to what some steps. So I'm like, and I'm literally thinking, okay, man, what am I going to do? Like, as I'm asking, a real moment just happened. So I had to get up and run. So my first thought was, shoot, who's at, take care of the house, protect the family. So I ran outside and come to find out it was a lady. She just wanted the phone number to the landlord. She couldn't read it. It was trying to get information about a rental property, about renting a townhouse. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
So I told her, I said, you can come outside the car. You can come on over. She good. But again, that real moment happened just that fast. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, and I said fight or flight. And here it is. My mind is like, I got thoughts coming. And I'm thinking about this podcast. I'm running the door like, oh my gosh, the real moment just happened. What am I going to do now? And so, but thank God wasn't nothing as expected. But that's pretty interesting how a real moment just played out just that quick.
Yeah. So John?
Good question. Very good question. I'm learning how to breathe first. Then after breathing, thinking about the situation, trying to focus a little bit. Like you said, I think we talked about this before. Trauma has a way of overriding some of the things that how you think and how you move. So you move a specific way or you respond to a certain thing. So I try my best to. A lot of times I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of times I check out until I can get my head straight.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's easier said than done. I do understand this. I acknowledge this. We can't always. Sometimes we don't always have the mental and emotional fortitude to react in the proper way. I get this 100%. But I think the best thing we can do, especially as men, in those opportunities, every opportunity we have where we can, and I guess the term now that people have been throwing out, that emotional intelligence. learning to handle situations in every situation. You know, when you're having disagreements with the wife or someone you're close with or a coworker, you know, and you feel your emotions getting being raised, you're angry or frustrated. How do you talk to them? What is your tone? And I can say that sometimes, you know, I'm not angry, but if I'm irritated or frustrated, my tone can change, and I really have to be mindful of that. A lot of times, you know, because it's for me, it's just kind of natural to do that. And you know, I had to apologize to my wife the other day because we were in the kitchen. It was last week. It was one day I was cooking. I think it was last weekend, and I was cooking, and she, you know, was trying to help, and she was putting some dishes away. And every time I try to move and do something in the kitchen, you know, she was putting something away, and I was like, "Babe, stop! You're in my way." And it wasn't that calm, but then I realized that my tone came across as probably kind of harsh. And she just grabbed her phone and she went downstairs. She literally got out the way. She moved out of the space completely. So we have to be mindful of how we can use our moments like that to monitor ourselves. And in that situation, this is where it comes to for us to, as men, taking accountability for what we say or do. You know, because as I was doing what I was doing in the kitchen, I was thinking through, and I was like, I think I came across kind of harsh. I wasn't meaning to be loud or harsh to her. So I went and apologized to her. You know, I was like, babe, I did not mean to snap at you. That wasn't the intent. Um, you know, I'm sorry. You know, so that was a moment of practice. You know, and moments like that is the best advice I could give, is where we really think through when you're having a disagreement. Could I have handled things differently? Could I say something differently? And if there is something you feel like, you know what, I shouldn't have said that. It's nothing wrong with going back and just saying, look, I'm sorry how what I said came out. You know, I didn't wasn't trying to hurt your feelings if I hurt your feelings or offend you. So I do apologize if you were offended or hurt by anything that I said. So that would be my suggestion. Use everyday opportunities to better ourselves emotionally. As they say, develop that emotional intelligence.
I think you said a mouthful right there, because like you said, you literally recognize, hey, um, you recognize that you said something, or you might have did something that affected the other person, and you went down there and you said, hey, I apologize, that was not my intention, circumstances, and you were upfront. I think that's the other thing, is like you said, you have to be able to acknowledge, and I think that's sometimes where I think you said it, Carrie, is you have to acknowledge and know when something is affecting you, and you have to know when you're just reacting to something. And or as we say in behavioral health, you got to know what your triggers are. And a lot of times, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. I don't always know my triggers. I just know how I react to something, and I'm literally having to go back and say, okay, why did I act like that, or why did I respond like that, and evaluate the situation and kind of go over the situation. Um, it's difficult sometimes, because sometimes you just don't know. You have no idea. You just know you reacted, and you don't know why you reacted. And sometimes you may not get the answer till weeks down the road, or till you go speak to your therapist, or whatever the circumstances is, and you get that aha moment.
Right.
Right. That's
All right. Cool. That was good. That was good, John. That was good. All right. And the other thing, and I guess this is goes into the other thing. So the other verse I wanted to read is in Proverbs 19.
mm,
All right. So Proverbs 19:11. It says the discretion of a man makes him slow to anger, and his glory is to overlook a transgression. For us as men, especially when we're not taught to handle our emotions in a proper way, and by proper I mean we don't learn to express them and acknowledge them. We let our emotions be bottled up, and when they are bottled up, they come out. And like I said earlier, they everyone becomes a casualty. Everyone gets a little bit of that sprayed on them. So, with that being said, not every wrong that is done to us requires us to react or punish. And I'm going to say this again. Not every wrong that is done to us requires us to react or punish. And I'm saying this from the sense of something simple. Someone bump into you when you're walking down, through the store or down a sidewalk. You don't have to go, "Hey man, what you done bumped into me?" You gonna say, "Excuse me? What's up?" You don't have to do all of that. You don't have to do all that. Sometimes, you know what happened. You might be thinking it, but is it worth starting a confrontation because this person bumped into you? They may not have even realized they bumped into you necessarily, because I know sometimes if my mind is elsewhere while I'm thinking, especially if I'm in a hurry, I may not be thinking about the fact that I bumped somebody. You bumped someone, but you're so engrossed in your thought, you're not thinking about it. That could be the case. We don't know. But see, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in Proverbs. You need to know the whole story before you react.
Mm.
It could be an emergency. They could be trying to get somewhere quickly because maybe they got an emergency phone call. We don't know. That's
Right.
just an example. So not every situation requires us to react and punish to a person or situation. So depending on what it is, something can be overlooked, meaning you can acknowledge a mistake someone made that upset you. Not getting upset is if someone doesn't always apologize to you. This is a huge thing, especially among some of the younger generation now.
Mm.
And I think it's always been a thing, but I just feel like it's more of a more prevalent thing now, because it's always all over social media. When someone does something and it's not acknowledged by the other person, they get upset and then they want to fight.
Mm.
We don't always have to. We don't have to wait on someone else to apologize. And sometimes, I know I've done it. I'm a big guy. If I'm walking through somewhere tight and I bump someone, I'm sorry. Oh, my fault. I didn't mean to bump you. Oh, no, that's my fault. I wasn't paying attention where I was going. Sometimes it's just how you come at the situation that will a lot of times determine the outcome. So we really have to be mindful of that,
Mm.
and just don't let stuff like that upset us to the point where we're doing something that will result in something that we will regret.
Mm.
Take responsibility. Sometimes being in the bigger man means just not fueling potential situations, because we all know there are situations where people will try to antagonize us. They'll say things, and also just understand, words are just words. They can be frustrating, they can be irritating, they can make us angry.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, words don't hurt us. They can't cause any harm to us outside of our pride.
Mm. Mm.
Don't let our pride get in the way. All right,
Mm.
it's whatever.
I
You know.
like what you go ahead.
Go
You
ahead,
go.
John. No, I
I
was
like
saying.
what you said. I like what you said. The only thing I would caveat off of that is it took me a minute to acknowledge, because I kind of understand what you say when you say words don't hurt. The funny part to that is they do hurt, and it's kind of hard to sometimes you don't want to think that they hurt because they're just words. They're somebody said something, but the truth of the matter is those words have an impact. It's something that I'm learning, and sometimes it's not the thing you want to hear. You know, I know this is gonna sound crazy. I'd rather somebody punch me than to say something sideways or to cuss me out, or especially somebody that I care about or somebody that cares about me, because it's gonna have a sometimes it's gonna have a lasting impact, is what I would say. But
Okay.
yeah, I do agree with you for the most part that words should not. How about that? Words should not hurt, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't hurt.
Yeah, and I acknowledge that, and I'm not saying that words can't, and that's why I say, you know, our pride, you know,
Yeah.
it affects our pride,
Yeah.
and when we allow our pride to rise up, it begins to stir up something emotionally in us, you know. So then we have to sit and think about, why did that bother me so much?
Mm.
Why did that bother me so much? And when we get down to maybe why it bothered us, it's at the end of the day, it just kind of boils down to pride. What they said, because it might have what was said might have gone contrary to what we believe about ourselves, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm just speaking from myself. When someone says something that gets under my skin, why am I letting it?
Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
I was gonna ask you the same question.
Oh
I think we
man.
did lose him.
Yeah. Oh, let's see.
Well, that's did he come back? No.
He is back.
Okay.
All right. So sorry about that, ladies and gents. You know, technical issues here and there. But with that being said, I think we should stop right here. We can pick this up next Friday, because I honestly thought I was going to have more time to kind of get through a lot of the stuff. But you know, when you're having good conversation, you know, time flies. So
you struck a nerve that went generational with this one here. So I was like, no, this one can't be let go too easy. This is going to probably be a whole month long. This may have to be the June series right here, because this is a good one right here.
oh,
It is.
yeah, definitely. It's definitely going to be something we'll talk about again. We'll talk about it again next month. So I mean, I'll pick it up next month, and we can continue on unless one of you all want to carry on, because y'all might have a different perspective.
Let's keep this going. Next Friday, keep going. I'm loving this conversation right here.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go ahead and end the session of today of Men of Valor, Iron Sharpens Iron. So, with that being said, please tune in to us next Friday. We'll try to be more prompt with 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch us on YouTube at Men of Valor, Iron Sharpens Iron on YouTube and Facebook. So please follow us, like and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You know, if you like it, share. You know, if you got any wisdom, any encouragement from this, please share it. And we thank you. So with that, have a good night.
For everybody, and Lady B says hello as well to everybody. So have a good night, everybody.
Bye. It's good to see you.
I missed y'all tonight. I normally tune in, but I missed y'all tonight, so I'm gonna catch the replay.
Okay.
All right, good night, y'all.
All right, y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.
All right.
Vince, give me a call.